In late summer 1944, the Allied army spilled out of Normandy faster than their supplies could follow. Roads clogged, rails torn up, and ports still limited. Commanders faced a simple truth. Without fuel, ammunition, and food, victory would stall on the open road. The U.S. Army's answer was as direct as a painted road sign: the Red Ball Express. Beginning August 25, 1944, thousands of trucks ran nearly nonstop on dedicated one-way roads from Normandy depots to the front. It was a short-term fix for a problem measured in tons and miles. The name Red Ball already meant express freight in U.S. railroad slang. In France, it became a lifeline. 2 marked routes, one outbound loaded, one inbound empty, policed by military police, and regulating points to keep traffic flowing. The crisis driving this move was brutally practical. Airfields, armies, and hospitals consumed fuel and material at a pace no damaged railway could meet. Until major ports and pipelines came online, trucks were the only way to bridge the gap from the beaches to the front. On paper, the concept was simple. In practice, it meant mobilizing thousands of vehicles, drivers, MPs, dispatchers, mechanics, and supply clerks into a single synchronized flow. Priorities: gasoline first, then ammunition and rations shifted with the fighting. The Red Ball Express operated under theater-level direction but lived or died at the regulating points. Way stations that metered convoys onto the route, set intervals, and solved problems before they rippled down the line. Where did the road begin? Early routes tied Normandy depots near St. Lo to forward supply points further east, with one-way loops keeping outbound loads away from the returning empties. As the front moved, so did the end points. The trucks themselves were workhorses, the GMC CCKW 2.5-ton Jimmy, and similar types, hauling jerrycans of gasoline, crates of rations, and artillery shells. Their value was in numbers and reliability, not glamour. The scale was unprecedented. Contemporary Army accounts and later studies describe more than 5,000 vehicles and tens of thousands of personnel in motion, day and night, to keep pace with an army racing across France. The drivers came from across the army, many reassigned from other duties to meet the need. About 3/4 were African-American soldiers serving in segregated units, their work indispensable yet often overlooked in post-war memory. They drove in blackout conditions, often without headlights, over roads battered by war and weather. Fatigue was a constant enemy, and maintenance happened whenever and wherever a truck could be pulled off the line. Military police enforced a one-way system and convoy spacing. Regulating points acted as traffic lights for entire armies, smoothing surges and holding vehicles until route ahead could absorb them. The first days were rough. Routes changed, depots shifted, and every extra mile added to driver hours. Yet the convoys settled into a rhythm: short halts, quick refuels, and back on the road before momentum bled away. Fuel, gasoline in 5-gallon jerrycans, was a lifeblood. Without it, armored and motorized divisions lost mobility. With it, the Allied pursuit stayed dangerous to the retreating enemy and hard on its own supply lines. The Red Ball Express was never meant to be permanent. It was a bridge to the future, to larger ports, repaired rails, and fuel pipelines extending east. But for nearly 3 months, it shouldered the heaviest loads. Theater histories record the start on August 25, 1944, and the closure in November, once alternative supply lines caught up. In that span, Red Ball carried a massive share of the daily tonnage to the front. Numbers vary by source, but Army transportation histories and museum research agree on the scale. Thousands of trucks and more than 20,000 personnel committed, moving critical loads around the clock. For the drivers, long hours and quick turnarounds were the norm. Many learned to read the road by sound and feel, saving their headlights for only the worst stretches. Maintenance crews kept a stream of spare parts and tires ready. Behind the wheel, segregation shaped daily life. African-American transportation companies did the bulk of the driving. Their performance under pressure challenged stereotypes at the time and reshaped how the Army thought about manpower. The cargo most remembered is gasoline, but rations and ammunition consumed huge capacity. Commanders weighed every mile. A truck carrying food could not carry shells. Every choice echoed at the front. In the language of logistics, Red Ball translated distance into time. Every hour saved at a regulating point meant a battalion refueled before dawn, or a division resupplied before the attack jumped off. By autumn, the Allies repaired rail lines, opened more ports, and extended pipelines east. That was always the plan. But the story of how they got there, day after day, convoy after convoy, is the story of Red Ball. Next, we'll step inside the system, how the routes were laid out, who ran the checkpoints, and what a day looked like for the men behind the wheel. Inside the Red Ball system, everything served one purpose: flow. Theater logisticians in the communications zone, and its advanced section built a loop of one-way roads, regulating points, and convoy rules to keep trucks moving without cross-traffic or delay. The convoy began near St. Lo, feeding depots in the Chartres, La Loupe, and Dreux Triangle, then pushed east. Sources place the start in late August 1944, with official histories marking August 25th and museum research noting operations underway as early as August 21st. On September 10th, the loop split at Versailles. One arm ran north past Paris to Soissons for First Army. The other swung east via Melun to Sommesses for Third Army. 10 days later, the northern route extended to Herson. The rules were simple and strict: 25 miles per hour, 60-yard intervals, convoys led by a blue flag jeep and tailed by a green flag jeep, one way outbound loaded and the other inbound empty. Military police kept civilian and unrelated military traffic off the route. Even with rules, the scale was daunting. The Red Ball ran for roughly 81 to 82 days and hauled about 412,000 tons by its close in mid-November 1944. On peak days in late August, more than 5,900 vehicles and 132 truck companies moved over 12,000 tons forward. The average day looked different. The system dispatched roughly 1,500 trucks carrying about 8,000 tons, with loads averaging a little over 5 tons. A round trip ran over 700 miles and took nearly 3 days to complete. The convoys lived at regulating points, way stations that meter departures to prevent choke points and smooth surges when depots or bridges bottlenecked. They were the traffic lights for an army's lifeline. Control evolved under pressure. Initially operated by an advanced section motor transport brigade, the Red Ball's far rear reach created overlapping authorities. On October 5th, the Provisional Brigade was dissolved in long-haul control, centralized under the Communications Zone's Chief of Transportation. As rails revived, the Army shortened truck hauls and shifted cargo at Paris. New transfer yards at Aubervilliers, La Courneuve, and Vincennes. Fontenay let trucks hand off loads to rail, multiplying capacity by trimming turnarounds. The other reason the system worked was a truck, above all, the GMC CCKW 2.5-ton Jimmy. Reliable, plentiful, and simple to fix, it was the backbone of the convoy. Museums summarize it simply: over 5,000 vehicles kept the lifeline open, most driven by African-American soldiers in a segregated army. Indispensable work, too often overlooked. The human side was punishing: 2-man crews, cat-eye lights at night, and maintenance on the shoulder when parts failed. Tires, engines, and nerves were thin. Theater histories even tallied the averages: a turnaround of roughly 71 hours on the long loops. The mission mix shifted with the fight, but fuel dominated. Gasoline in 5-gallon jerrycans paced armor and transport. Then rations and ammunition filled what space remained. The Red Ball's speed sometimes bred improvisation. Some loads moved outside formal convoys to beat delays. Some governors disappeared to pull grades faster, and frontline units occasionally commandeered trucks at the roadside when urgency outweighed paperwork. Not all fixes were ad hoc. October brought a formal convoy SOP and clearer documentation after the first week's trial and error. The lifeline was never meant to last. As rails reopened and ports like Antwerp came online, trucks handed over the heaviest distances. The Red Ball closed on November 16, 1944, after moving more than 412,000 tons. The method spread to other color routes, from red line to white ball, tailored to new needs. Through it all, the human composition mattered. Roughly 3/4 of the theater's truck companies were African American. Their performance under pressure became part of how the Army remembered the lifeline after the war. Summed up, Red ball translated distance into time. Every minute saved at a regulating point. Every truck that completed a 700-mile loop was a battalion refueled or division resupplied when it mattered. Next, we'll lay the lifeline over the operations it fed, how fuel and ammunition delivery shaped the tempo of the pursuit, and the limits that logistics imposed on strategy. To see what the Red Ball Express meant in the field, lay its convoys over the operational map. As the pursuit crossed the Seine and pressed toward the Meuse and Moselle, gasoline and ammunition moved as fast as roads and regulating points could clear them. The tempo at the front was limited less by courage than by the next full tank. Headquarters had priorities, fuel first, then ammunition and rations, but priorities shifted as combat shifted. A push by armored spearheads could suddenly pull gasoline ahead of everything else. A planned attack might elevate artillery ammunition overnight. The Red Ball's job was to turn those choices into miles covered. In late August and early September, the lifeline lengthened. Bridges were damaged, dieters multiplied, and every added mile compounded fatigue and maintenance. Even so, theater histories record that the Red Ball carried hundreds of thousands of tons across roughly 80 days, an effort measured in wear on tires as much as in tonnage delivered. The lifeline fed all armies in pursuit, but it is often linked in memory to Third Armies' race across France. When operational fuel ran low, the pursuit slowed. When convoys caught up, the advance resumed. The lesson was plain. Momentum at the front was a product of movement in the rear. Day to day, the system aimed for steady averages rather than heroic peaks. Dispatchers measured success in turnarounds. Hours saved at a regulating point, minutes shaved at a bridge, fewer breakdowns per 100 miles. Each small gain multiplied across thousands of truck miles. The most visible symbol of the system was the truck itself, the GMC CCKW Jimmy, and its stablemates, simple to fix, reliable, and available in mass. With canvas off and stakes down, a bed became a platform for jerrycans. With a trailer, a single truck could haul a precious extra ton. Crews learned the road by sound and feel. Blackout driving meant cat-eye markers and short halts to cool brakes on long grades. Mechanics and drivers blurred roles, patching fuel lines, swapping wheels, and cannibalizing disabled trucks to keep convoys intact. The hazards were mostly mundane and relentless. Fatigue produced accidents, weather turned shoulders to traps, and traffic jams burned precious hours. Enemy action hit far less often than rain, darkness, and wear. The fix was discipline, routing, and maintenance. Behind the wheel, segregation shaped the experience. Roughly 3/4 of the truck companies were African American. Their performance, under pressure on little sleep, in lousy weather, kept the pursuit supplied, even as recognition lagged in the years after. Photos show the mix of cargo, gasoline cans, ammunition, rations, loaded by hand and by the clock. A truck that lingered at a depot delayed every vehicle behind it, so regulating points pushed quick turnarounds and clean paperwork. At Paris, revived rail yards took pressure off the trucks. Transfer points let long-haul loads move by rail farther east, while trucks focused on feeder hauls and the most urgent deliveries. As the system matured, distance by truck decreased, but speed to the front improved. The Red Ball model spread to other routes, tailored corridors with color names and specific tasks. They shared the same DNA, one-way control, priority cargo, and relentless scheduling. If one image captures a lifeline, it's a long ribbon of canvas-topped CCKWs snaking across France. The Army's own transportation history calls Red Ball a remarkable mission. Improvise in crisis, refine in weeks, and retire when rails and pipelines took over. Memory of the drivers and companies has grown clearer with time. Museums have highlighted their service. Units have staged commemorations. And the Army has memorialized the mission in ceremonies recognizing those who kept the front moving. Popular retellings sometimes simplified the story. The film versions and later articles focused on speed, danger, and celebrity generals. The archival and official histories emphasized something steadier. Procedure, discipline, and a mountain of paperwork turned into motion. The numbers remain impressive. By mid-November 1944, the Red Ball Express had hauled on the order of 412,000 tons, with peak days moving over 12,000 tons. Those figures shifted as routes changed, but the scale never stopped being extraordinary. Even the trucks tell a story. Hard tops, soft tops, cargo and tractor variants, each a small compromise between capacity, reliability, and speed. The Jimmy earned a reputation not for luxury, but for finishing a run and lining up for another. Then the Lifeline did what it was designed to do. And with more ports open, railways repaired, and pipelines pushing fuel forward, the Red Ball Express closed in November 1944. Its mission complete and its lessons absorbed into doctrine. Today, the story survives in photographs and in the memories of veterans. Images of trucks in mud, MPs at checkpoints, and drivers catching sleep where they could. It also lives in the institutions that keep their history visible and their work understood. In the end, Red Ball Express was logistics as strategy, an improvised artery that made operations possible, then stepped aside when a sturdier circulatory system was ready. The trucks saved time, and time saved lives. Next, we'll close the loop with the wind down and legacy, how the Red Ball Express ended, what replaced it, and how its veterans asked the Army and the country to remember what a convoy can do. Autumn 1944 brought the turning point. As ports expanded, rail lines were repaired, and pipelines pushed east from the beaches. The theater no longer needed a long-haul truck lifeline at the same scale. The Red Ball Express had done its emergency job. Now other arteries could carry the load. Official accounts placed the end in mid-November 1944, specifically November 16th, after roughly 81 to 82 days on the road, and about 412,000 tons delivered. The long haul gave way to shorter truck runs, feeding railheads and pipelines. The model didn't disappear, it diversified. Color-coded routes, red lion, white ball, green diamond, and the little red ball, handled specific corridors and missions as the front shifted and rail carried more the distance. What replaced Red Ball day-to-day was not one thing but a mix, reviving railways, additional ports, and forward pipelines, each cheaper in fuel and trucks per ton-mile than long motor hauls. The Emergency Express had bought time for that cheaper capacity to arrive. Some popular retellings pinned every halt on one general or one convoy. The record is more prosaic. Fuel priorities, destroyed infrastructure, and distance at the boundaries of the pursuit. The Red Ball Express expanded those boundaries, but it could not erase them. Another misconception is that Red Ball served only one army. In fact, from the split near Paris, the corridors fed First and Third Armies, and the network adjusted as their axes diverged. The point was theater-level flow, not a single commander's dash. By the numbers, the achievement remained stark. A peak of nearly 6,000 vehicles on a road in late August, 132 truck companies committed. Total carriage on the order of 412,000 tons, an operating share that was roughly three-quarters African-American drivers and crews. Recognition followed slowly. In the years since, museums, historians, and the Army itself have highlighted the Red Ball story, with special attention to black soldiers whose work underwrote the pursuit across France. Logistics professionals still study the model, prioritize the critical, separate flows to reduce conflict, meter movement at regulating points, and shorten hauls as soon as alternatives appear. It is a wartime lesson with peacetime applications. The trucks themselves, the GMC CCKW, Jimmy above all, earned their fame the hard way, by finishing runs and lining up for another. Reliability, parts commonality, and sheer numbers mattered more than glamour. After November, color routes continued where needed, but the headline had passed the rail, inland waterways, and pipelines pushing fuel toward the German border. The Express had proven the principle. When time is a scarce resource, capacity can be created with discipline and coordination. The Red Ball Express is a place of memory because it solved a problem that at first looked unsolvable. Armies too fast for their own supply. That it ended quietly is part of its success. It was a bridge to something sturdier. For the veterans who drove, dispatched, wrenched, and policed the convoys, the legacy lives in photos and in the institutions that keep their story. It lives, too, in every modern logistics plan that remembers what a one-way road with a purpose can do. Step back from the numbers, and Red Ball Express reads like a field manual written on the fly. Define a priority, clear a road, mirror the flow, and keep the trucks turning. It sounds simple because thousands of people made it look that way. What Red Ball did, above all, was buy time. It filled the gap until ports, railways, and pipelines could carry the weight. Once those came online, the theater shut the express down. Success, not failure. The dates anchor the memory. A launch in late August 1944, formally August 25th, and a close on November 16th after roughly 81 to 82 days. In that span, official histories place total tonnage at about 412,000, another solid figure. At its late August peak, nearly 6,000 vehicles and 132 truck companies moved over 12,000 tons in a day. By design, the average day was smaller and steadier. The people matter most. Roughly 3/4 of the truck units were African American, serving in a segregated army, doing essential work at speed and doing it well. Today, that contribution is finally front and center. Myth and memory sometimes turn Red Ball into a single army story or story of speed alone. The record shows it fed multiple armies from the split near Paris, and that its real hero was procedure. One-way roads, convoy discipline, and regulating points that acted like traffic lights for a war. And because it was built fast, it evolved fast. Command arrangements shifted in October to tighten control. Paris transfer yards shortened truck hauls as rail revived, and color-coded sister routes took on specialized loads. Commemoration followed. The Army has memorialized a mission, museums have told the story, and the driver's role, especially black soldier service, has moved from the margins to the center of public history. If there is one lasting lesson, it is this: logistics is tempo. In 1944, trucks turned fuel and ammunition into forward motion. They saved time, and time saved lives.